Hi there, it's Kevin with Deckbuilder.com, here with a little bit of a speculation video of things to come in the next few months from Magic the Gathering. Sort of a market type video. I wouldn't say we're focused too much on the financial side, just trying to speculate on what we're going to see from the Masters 25 as well as from the Duel decks. So first of all, if you may not know, this will be the last Duel decks, Elves versus Inventors. And we have the packaging and a couple of the previews, which I am very disappointed in. And we'll get to that in a second. So I think the Goblin Welder is kind of a weird choice for cards or a card to showcase on the front. Typically, you want to have like a higher chase card. We even saw with the last Duel deck, Goblins versus Merfolk. And I think that's also a problem, that they just had a Goblins deck out. So why put another Goblin on the front packaging of a Duel deck? And this one is kind of a cool card. Let's go ahead and let me find the price of the Goblin Welder at the moment here to see if it's actually worthwhile to put in. But typically, you want to have something that has a price tag on the front of the box. At least one of them needs to be around the $10 mark. That's what's been successful for Duel decks in the past. So the Goblin Welder, I know how to reprint in Commander. Looks like Commander 2014 was the last time it's been reprinted. And you can see that it was a $3 card, still going down. The trajectory has been going down for quite some time. It's not like Commander 2014 was that recent of a set. It's actually what now, over 3 years old from the Commander 2014, and this trajectory is something that is not a good sign for a card like that. We can look at the Urza's Legacy card of it as well, and same thing. It's been it dipped and then went up a little bit, then dipped right back down. So yes, this does see a lot of play in Commander, but it already has had that Commander printing, and to be the showcase of the Duel deck, I think is quite lackluster, for lack of a better word. We don't know what's going to be on the front of this one, but I'm assuming, wouldn't it just be Azuri? Wouldn't that be something that you'd put on the front for the Elves versus Inventors? But maybe they've actually found something better than Azuri. So anyway, this is the last Duel deck, though. It is a mistake, I think, on Wizards. I think they're getting rid of these because these have traditionally had a dismal time being sold. What ends up happening with the vast majority of Duel decks is they go to the Walmarts, they go to the Targets, they end up, I think that there's just more costs associated with them getting damaged and sent back, and it's just a mess in the Walmart and the big box stores, and they tend not to sell the greatest at local game stores unless they do have a lot of cards in it that people need for a current standard environment, or if there's just something in it that actually impacts Modern, then people pick them up. We did see the Eldrazi versus the Zendikar deck go pretty crazy, but it was actually, when we bought into that, no one wanted it. Avengers Zendikar, I think, went all the way down to like $1. Let me double check that here for Avenger of Zendikar from the Duel deck Zendikar versus Eldrazi, and now has definitely recovered. But when it did first come out, yeah, we were seeing them down. It went all the way down to $2. That was one of the showcase cards, and I believe the other card was Oblivion Sower, which people did like at the first, but then just didn't find a home in Standard. So the deck was actually not that well received until people figured out there was Eldrazi Temple in the deck, and then that just flew off the shelves because there was just a massive need for Eldrazi Temple during the Eldrazi winter, and this deck ended up being a pretty decent deck for the Duel decks Zendikar versus Eldrazi. As you can see, the value of it hit $40 at one point. It's down to $37 at the moment, but yep, it's that Eldrazi Temple that is still the $10 range that is between these two cards, the Avengers Zendikar and Eldrazi Temple, that is really the demand for this particular Duel deck. So anyway, my personal thoughts is I do like the Duel decks. I can see Wizards' reasoning for getting rid of them. I think that they're, again, just too much cost associated with them. A lot of the times they sit on shelves forever, and this doesn't help like Wizards' profit margin. Sometimes, like, after the secondary market does catch up with the Duel deck Zendikar versus Eldrazi, because I believe these sell on eBay for around $35. But they ended up fire selling them. I'm pretty sure that Wizards ended up giving them out to distributors for very, very cheap after they had a hard time going off their shelves. and then it just had to go through the distributor line. I was able to get decks like these. Bless versus Curse, for example, I was able to get for, I think, $8 at one point. I mean, it was just absolutely insanity how cheap I was able to get the dual decks for this. But this one also wasn't one that was hard to pick up for quite a while. And so again, that's just something with a company like Wizards, they need to be churning in that revenue. They need to be having they want unstable to happen. That's the type of ideal set where they print something and it just flies off the shelf. And so I think the dismal, just the lack of speed that these dual decks are, enter the marketplace through Wizards directly is something that has been embarrassing to them, and that is why they're getting discontinued. However, we're reaching a point where I think that dual decks would have been a great way to inject equity, or for Wizards to find equity and inject new reprints into the marketplace. And I think that they just have missed major opportunities. They got even lucky with this Eldrazi Temple, because this was printed before this was like a known card was going to actually impact Modern. So they got lucky with the Temple, and I think that they were banking on Avenger of Zendikar or even It the Betrays by holding a lot of that value. And it just wasn't there. And their Mythic was just dismal, sitting around $1 for the Mythic. So let's go back to what they have going on for this Elves versus Inventors. So we have the Goblin Welder, huge miss in my opinion. And then we start to look at some of the cards that reprinted. Solemn Simulacrum, I believe, is a pretty good inclusion in here because it's a card that needs to be reprinted over and over and over. And it has, though, the whole problem, it has seen a lot of printings, but it's currently sitting at the $5 mark. Last printing was Commander 2016, so it did miss the Commander 2017 printing, but this is a card that does stabilize prices, so this is exactly the type of card you do want in dual decks. Now, in my opinion, it's a misguided notion. It's faulty ideology. That's not the right word, but faulty business practice for Wizards to really care about the price of the secondary market. I think they should just look at the rarity and impact of the card in the dual deck to see if they actually want it in. And unfortunately, it does seem to be that they look at the secondary market too much. Now, there is the Tolarian Community College line of thought that if they put like an expensive card in the dual decks, then it wouldn't get into the intended hands, into the consumer's hands. But it's like Wizards cares about it sometimes, but then doesn't care about it all the time. There's just so flip-floppy, I guess is the right word for some of their products. Like, it's definitely some of them, they hold to this like practice of not putting expensive cards in dual decks or other supplemental products, and other times they just completely go crazy and throw in very expensive cards in their supplemental products. So I think I'm on the side of be more risky with that, where we actually could use a lot more reprints in especially modern land bases, rather than putting a card that does not need a reprint in that slot. So I've been I think that most of these dual decks should have always had a fetch land in them, or at least a shock land, just something that does see play, and that incentivizes people to buy them and will lower the price significantly in the mana base for Modern. So what do we get in this particular one? We get a whopping Shivan Reef. Now, this card has started to go up in value because it does see play in some decks. However, a lot of the decks that add the colorless, these are the decks that actually want to splash for Eldrazi, and I don't think right now we have a blue-red Eldrazi Shivan Reef type deck. So I think that's a huge miss for the dual or the land they could have put in there. They could have put in the standard land, being the, not Botanical Sanctum, but what's the shit? No, I can't even think of the Kaladesh land, but I think that was around $8. Let's see. I'm sure we can find it here with the let's see, Kaladesh. We have, why can't I think of what it's called? Sparbuff Canal. Yeah, $8.50. This would have been a way better choice to put in the deck than the Shivan Reef, as we have Shivan Reef going for, it was last reprinted in, I believe, Origins. So Magic Origins, we have the Reef at a whopping $2. Now, it is going up, but I mean, that's a very, very slow trajectory. I actually think it's one of the, I think there's better targets for this, like the Bant lands are better for this particular land. And I'm sure that the Reef eventually will get to a point where it will need a reprint, but I think that that's like 2, 3, 4 years down the road. And this one's just going to be pretty meh. People aren't going to be excited about the Shivan Reef. It's a rare, just like the Spirebuff Canal, just like a Steam Vents, which is sitting at, I believe, quite expensive, for the Steam vents, and people are saying, well, they need to save these for their master sets later on. But I mean, what's the difference? They sell either a dual deck, it flies off the shelf, or they sell a master set that flies off the shelf. And so I think it's a lot easier to make a master's set fly off the shelf than it is for dual deck. You need to incentivize those dual decks, and I think it's pretty sad that they chose the Reef in this slot. What's even the filter land they could have put for the blue-red filter land? Rugged Prairie. It's like not the Rugged Prairie. I can't think at the moment what that's called, but I believe that one's a pretty hefty price tag on the blue-red filter land as well. So I think that, again, terrible inclusion with the Shivan Reef. This could have easily been a better slot. The Thopter Assembly, another worthless card. It literally is not worth anything. Let's double check on that with the Thopter Assembly is currently going for. And you can already see that they've already used a lot of their rare equity, unless they're going crazy with this particular card. Yeah, this is worth nothing. We have a rare land, a rare artifact, a mythic. They've given the Goblin Welder the mythic symbol. So that's going to be the one mythic out of the set, which is sad because they could have easily put some better artificers. We'll have to think of some artificers they could have put in here, or something like either an Aether Vial they could have thrown in here. But I think that's just a huge miss for the Welder as the showcase card. I guess I've already said that in this video, though. So let's go on to the Elves. Elves, I think Azuri Renegade Leader definitely was a pretty good addition. I'm not sure why it's not the art for the... I think this one would have been great to put as the art. It's around $5. This typically is a card that goes up in value. It needs a lot of reprinting, so it just got a Commander Anthology reprinting. It's a card I sell a ton of. Elf Ball is a very popular format, or very popular legacy and modern type or archetype. And Azure, I believe, still does see play in both of them. We can double check that. Just modern, I guess. Legacy. Oh yeah, Legacy uses the Creator of Behemoth, but I guess a lot of the Elf decks might have gone away from Azuri. But there have been some modern decks that actually just pack full of the Azuris to try to hit off the collected companies or lead the Stampedes, but they can cord for it as well. So yeah, you probably only want 2 of them just in case one of them gets Path. But traditionally, it's fit in these Elf strategies and as a finisher. And it is also very popular as a commander, as well as put in a lot of different elf type commanders. I know that I have this Azuri in my Noth of the Guilt Leaf because you're producing a lot of elves and this becomes a finisher. So it's a great addition here. But again, this is a $5 card. So we have this Solemn Simulacrum and the Azuri. So far this is actually looking, those 2 cards might be able to push the sale of the set when we compare it to other dual decks in the past. But again, I still think that there should have been more, and the land definitely should have been something that people actually wanted, or actually could have helped with the mana base for Modern. So let's go with some of these other ones. We have a Sylvan Advocate, which isn't worth anything because it hasn't seen any play at all in Modern, and we have the Regal Force, which I do believe just got a reprinting. Yeah, Eternal Masters and the Elvish Archdruid. So let's pull these 2 up to see what the Elvish Archdruid. This card gets reprinted a lot, but again, for the same reasons. As Azuri, it does need reprinting. So it's currently sitting around $2, $2.30, $2.40. Yeah, so about the $2.25 is the low range for the, and it's at its high point here for the M12. So it's caught up to some of these Commander Anthologies and Commander, the Commander 14. So again, a good little addition for the box set, but this will probably half the value of that particular card. And let's go ahead. And what was the other? There's a Regal Force. The Regal Force is sitting at, from the Eternal Masters, I believe, yeah, very inexpensive card at $1.92. And this card did get all the way up to, I believe it was expensive, $15 at one point. You can see the trajectory that it hit for the Eternal Masters because it was an Eventide, which doesn't have the greatest supply, which ran up and then crashed, really crashed from the Eternals Masters printing. So again, this is a good showing of what a master set does, where Wizards think that they have equity in the set, they can rely on this card. Did they actually print it as a rare? Yeah, so they think that they're printing a $15 rare in a set, when in reality, the equity they get from it is only around $2. So there's a big warning for future master sets to actually find things with high demand, not just necessarily low supply, to try to get that equity out of it. Do not rely on cards like Regal Force, and in this case, they're not going to be able to rely on it in this dual deck because it's still pretty much flatlined out at the $2 mark. Yes, still almost to its lowest ever. In fact, it is its lowest ever because this $1.45 is a misconception because of this little dip that happened here that put it down to the $1.45 range, which I wish that NC Goldfish would have a way to kind of purge these, because these are when Crystal Commerce went offline and it just caused like this weird shift in the marketplace at TCG Player. Alrighty, so let's go back one more time to the dual decks, and we have any other updates. That's all that we know right now. Is that the artwork for Sylvan Advocate, I believe? Maybe that's Elvish Archdruid artwork. But yeah, not a lot of really, like I said, I think they need something that can push it over the top of the top. The Solemn Simulacrum and the Azuri, I think, are good starts, but I am interested in what this Mythic will be to see if it can actually push this into one of the best dual decks for a while, but I think they still need to push it more. So other news, what's going on is we have this dumpster fire, which also makes me laugh about the dual decks, because almost everything that Wizards has ever done, they flip-flopped on. So I'm going to call it right now, dual decks will probably come back when people are like, we want them back. And then they'll come back, and then they'll be able to inject the Pauper reprints in those quite easily, and some cards for Modern, and maybe do them right. But anyway, we have the announcement that Friday Night Magic non-token promo cards return with Dominaria. Be prepared to be disappointed. What Wizards needs to do is they need to print cards that are actually Modern playable. They need to look at any standard cards that have any impact in Modern and put those to the promo. I actually suggest we just do away with FNM promos completely, and we go back to a player reward system with more of an achievement-based player reward, so either attending events, doing something at an event, where you just get it checked off by your local game store. So your local game store makes sure that you actually these achievements have been completed, and then you earn points that can be cashed out to a player reward system. Now, Wizards doesn't like handling the players reward system because it's just too much mail that they have to keep up track with players. So I suggest they utilize this huge resource called the local game stores to pass out cards in the player reward system, and it allow people. So what would happen is players would cash in their points. You would be able to then do an order through Wizards, just tack it onto one of your orders when they send all the other stuff that, hey, Charlie wanted this cryptic command text list card that he's been saving up for, playing in FNMs for 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, whatever, 2 years to get this text list cryptic command. And so we as a game store log into WPN, we cash out Charlie's DCI number for all the points that he's accumulated, get the cryptic command, it comes to our store, Charlie shows up for an FNM, we give Charlie his promo. Now, would that lead huge exploits for bad eggs in the WPN network? Absolutely, but this would also be a way of identifying them and purging them, because we've already seen what was the channel that opened up 50. There are 50 of the standard showdown packs because he bought them on eBay, because stores were selling them on eBay, which is a huge no-no, and Wizards refuses to look into that and do anything about it. Now, this will just take policing on Wizards. I mean, no one's, right now, FNM, our standard showdowns are being abused, and of course this would allow, or this would open it up to stores abusing this sort of system, but with a little bit of police work, they can start to weed out the people that are abusing the players reward system. So that's my idea. Who cares about these dumb little shiny FNM promos that end up being commons and uncommons, which, 80% of the time they're pretty much misses because Wizards just wasn't good at picking cards that were going to be impactful as standard. The only other alternative to that, though, is waiting for a meta to kind of stabilize, and then a lot of times they're late getting these out to production because then the formats will rotate every year, and you never know if those cards will rotate out, and then people get ticked off at that because they only got to play their Winding Constrictor, for example, for a few months. If they say they're going to release like Winding Constrictor in Dominaria, there's only a few months left that's actually standard legal. Doesn't see any some modern play, so there's another FNM promo that just loses its value that it could have had if it would have been showcased for longer. So this to me is just too much of a headache for them to continue with this Friday Night Magic token or non-token promo, or even token promo strategy that they've been doing. They need to just go back to the player's reward system and use that massive resource they have called local game stores to act as a chain to get it out to the people who actually play in their Friday Night Magics. Whew, there's that big rant for there. Last but not least, let's talk about some goodies here with the Masters 25. So we had the Phyrexian Obliterator spoiled. Now, Phyrexian Obliterator is a card that I think is a little better than like the Regal Force or a lot of the cards that we saw in Iconic Masters, like even Shieldred and some of those cards. I think the Phyrexian Obliterator will hold its value a little bit better because it's just a casual favorite. It does see modern play every now and again in mono black devotion decks. And speaking of mono black devotion decks, I think this is a clear sign that is going to be one of the focal points. Now, I don't think they're going to go devotion in all of the decks. I think that it's just going to be a black mechanic, will be black devotion decks. Now, they could maybe do 2 colors of devotion, and then have like the hybrid cards, and then that's a way they can inject the hybrid cards into it. I think this is bad news for Infect as well. If the mythic from the new Phyrexia is going to be a non-infect card, I'm not sure there's going to be enough infect to actually put in this set. So a lot of people are thinking it's Blightsteel Colossus. It's on the packaging of the Masters 25. It's looking more and more to being something, either the Platinum Imperium, the Darksteel Colossus, or they think those are the 2, or there's one other that people are speculating, Sundering Titan type card. But my bet is on the Platinum Imperium is the card. It does hold some value right now. It does see play in a modern deck, and I think that for that particular set, that's probably one of the better cards to showcase. Even though Wormcoil Engine's also in that set, so I don't know. We'll have to wait and see with that. But with Phyrexian Obliterator, we can start to speculate on what cards are going to be printed in the mono black devotion. The first one that comes to mind that needs a reprint is going to be the Grave Pact. I think that Grave Pact is going to be included in Masters 25. We already have prices exceeding the lowest price point of this is $13.75 because of the ugly artwork for this Grave Pact. No one likes this artwork well, I shouldn't say no one. I'm sure some people do like it, but anyway, that's funny how art actually matters. It's a whole $3 cheaper than a few of these other printings, but you can see that this is an expensive rare that has been actually reprinted quite a bit. 8th, 9th, 10th. So anything that celebrates the success of Magic, it is a card like Grave Pact. It fits in that devotion strategy, and I think with that, of course, Grey Merchant will be reprinted in because that's one of the most iconic cards of the Theros block. So it definitely will be printed in the Masters 25, and that way they don't have to focus on like devotion either. At least black devotion in Modern Masters. The next 2019, I believe, is when Modern Masters will come out for the Theros block for that. But anyway, so with Grave Pact, it adds 3 devotion, so I think it's going to be perfect with the Phyrexian Devour, and is going to kind of solidify. There's the mythic, the rare. You'll have the common being the Grey Merchant, and I'm sure some other cards that fit in that particular slot. Maybe like a Bloodghast could even go there, or any other double black cards. We could even get the Nightveil Spectre in that particular slot, or like even Hypnotic Spectre. I actually think Hypnotic Spectre will be in that slot. So I think the Dictate of Erebos is safe. So I think one of these is getting a reprinting. They both need reprints, so you can see the Dictate of Erebos is already up to a $5 mark. I think Grave Pact is going to be the one that hits this particular set. So I'll be looking forward to a lot of, I think, also, here's another one that I think. So along with the Black Devotion deck, I'm not sure, I think Nykthos Shrine of Nyx might get reprinted, but more than that, it's going to be Cabal Coffers. So Cabal Coffers and possibly even Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, I think we'll get a reprinting in this particular master set. And so they're going to go all in on that kind of black devotion theme. Probably deal damage equal to Corrupt, deal damage equal to the number of swamps you control, or some of those other cards that you can only spend black mana, pump it into. That was a strategy back during this time. There was a big period in Magic where mono black control was the bee's knees. Like, it was a very legitimate archetype, and it used cards like Cobble Coffers back during Torment as the engine to generate a bunch of black mana to then dump into a spell. I can't remember what the consume spirit. That's the one, right? That you can only spend black mana. Yeah, this is the one. This was during that time period. Consume spirit with Cobble Coffers to win the game. So I'm thinking we'll get something like that. and devotion will play a key part of it. I have a hard time thinking Erebos will be the god of choice. I think Perforos will be the god of choice that they'll print. You never know, they could print them all because that was the first time gods were printed. But I think that we might see something like the Scarab god as another god. Maybe they'll hit the gods from different sets. So you have Hour Devastation, and then like one from Journey, one from Theros, one from Born of the Gods, one from Hour Devastation, one from Amonkhet, and that way they'll have 5 gods. They might even print some things that interact with gods like Deicide and stuff like that. I think that they have a lot of room to work with that sort of theme. And for black, so maybe Erebos will be their choice one because it does work in that devotion type theme. And I think makes that gives arguments for a Dictate of Erebos, but I still think it's Grave Pact that will get hit. All right, so the other cards that we know about that are getting printed is Azusa Lost But Seeking and Jace the Mind Sculptor. Now, Jace the Mind Sculptor is, a lot of people are speculating out that this is going to mean that is going to get unbanned in Modern. Is it safe for Modern? Probably. There's a lot of decks that are having problems even getting to 4 mana. And there are also decks that typically would like cards like Jace that actually wouldn't. So, I mean, I don't think like Lantern Control wants to throw in Jace the Mind Sculptor. It plays a very similar role as that. The deck that this absolutely does want to go into is U-White Control. U-White Control will give up on their other win conditions and just go to the Jace lock. It might be something that Wizards doesn't want to occur in Modern. I can see why. I mean, if you can avoid decks like Lantern of Control ever becoming a thing, then they try to do so. They don't make good camera games. They're frustrating for people to play against. But there's a lot of speculation with Jace. Personally, I don't think it's going to be unbanned, but it's one of the safer cards to be unbanned in Modern, and you never know if they need to actually get some equity out of their set. That's a great way to get hype, is to unban Jace the Mind Sculptor. So anyway, that is... I don't know if there's a lot of... I don't know if Miracles are going to be in this set too, because the Miracles was a big part of Eternal Masters. So I don't... But it was a huge thing of Avacyn Restored. So we might see the archetype of Miracles work with Jace, but I'm thinking if they're going to do anything, it will be more in the blue Miracle archetype than the blue-white. Maybe even... Yeah, I think that'll be the route that they go. So probably the take extra turn one or whatnot is going to be the route that they go. So anyway, Azusa's Lost But Seeking is kind of interesting. They could go a number of different directions with Azusa. This does look like a reprint that is just needed because it hit $50 at one point. Let's go ahead and showcase the price of Azusa. Azusa. So it's only had that one printing. And it hit that 51 and now is going down. They could definitely go a lot of different routes with Azusa Lost But Seeking. So they have the Landfall that you could definitely go. They have Gitrog Monster. That's a thing. They have They have a lot of, just this card has a lot of, sorry about that. I was trying to delete a phone call. I answered with trying to mute my phone. Anyway, so the Azusa Lost But Seeking, playing at 2 additional lands, they could go with the bounce lands again. They could go with the Amulet route with it. I highly doubt they want to go that route. You could see the kind of the Amulet Bloom shell. Primeval Titan was already given a reprinting though in Iconic Masters. I highly doubt that it's going to get another one, but you never know. It could. So anywho, geez, my phone is going crazy. I think I'm just going to end the video here with the Azusa Lost But Seeking is going to be something that they can get some equity out of for this card. So it's a good sign for Iconic Master with Jace the Mind Sculptor and Azusa. It seems like this is going to be more of the Modern Masters 2017 route. So they're going to need to find some equity in some cards that really hold value. The Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, the fetch lands, the cards that just have a track record of going up after reprints. That's what Wizards needs to focus on. Anyway, I'd be interested in your speculations in the comment section below. I better get to this phone call as I've been called 4 times in a row after rejecting the call by hashtag blame Zach. So it better be important or I'm going to I won't make threats. Anyway, this has been Kevin with Deckbuilder.com. Thanks for watching.